What's up, everybody? And today we're checking out the Super F-22. I've seen quite a few videos floating around about this new upgraded version of the F-22, and we haven't checked it out yet on the channel, so we're going to do it. The video I am going to use to learn more about this is by Task and Purpose, which I think when it comes to information like this, new information, I think the best channel you can really go to is Task and Purpose. I've spoke about them plenty of times on this channel and how much I think they are absolutely phenomenal at military news. That's what they're really good at. And so, as always, there's a link down below in the description. If you're not already subscribed to Task and Purpose, then go ahead and go and do it. They are really, really good, and you're not going to get better information and better news on YouTube. I'm telling you that right now. What do I need to say before we get started? Last weekend, not weekend just gone, the weekend before, I announced Morale, my new business. If you haven't checked that out yet, please go check that out. It's my new mushroom-based nootropic drink, which I am so excited to launch. And it's a very exciting passion project of mine. It's a brand new business, completely separate from YouTube. So if you haven't checked it out, it'll be down in the description. Please go check out Morale. All right. Other than that, let's shut up. Let's pull this up and let's learn about the new Super F-22. It's like going Super Saiyan. They're going to do Super Saiyans, SS1, SS2, and it's just going to get more and more absolutely chaotic, this thing.
I think the story of the American F-22 Super Raptor proves that you can always strive to be a little bit better. You can always push yourself to be a little more lethal. And there's always room for the overachiever. Because the F-22 is currently getting a massive $11 billion overhaul over the next decade. The US Air Force announced these changes at the end of
Hold on, 11 billion? How much money have they already put into this program of the F-22 already?
2021, making it the most lethal thing to fly since the Jurassic period. And now we're just finally getting a glimpse of what changes the new and improved aircraft will have. In the words of Air Force Acquisition Chief Andrew Hunter, this is an effort to re-optimize for competition with China. And that's what I want to examine in this video, what upgrades it's getting and specifically why it needed them. But I also want to know why the US just gave me whiplash and went from considering retiring the F-22 to now prioritizing its upgrade.
Yeah, so I've done a video in the past about, I think my mic's a bit too loud. I'm sorry, let me turn it down. I've been messing with my audio a little bit. They've just, let's rewind. A while back, they said they're scrapping the F-22 because it's just too expensive of a program. And now that they're prioritizing the upgrades, so why, I'm sure he's going to get into this, but why do that? It makes me wonder about the progression of our Gen 6 fighters. Are they a little bit further behind than we think, right? Are they not as advanced, not as close to being shown off as we think? And so they're putting a bit of money into advancing something else. We have to remember one of the key important things about military tech is that it's able to be upgraded, and the F-22 is one of them, vehicles. It's able to be upgraded, and so instead of just scrapping it, they decided to upgrade it, and not just upgrade it a little bit. They have put billions into this, so this is a very interesting advancement in the aerospace, if I'm honest with you.
We'll also dive into the major debate happening in the Air Force right now about whether it's really a smart idea to invest human and material resources into the old Raptor when that money could be going towards the new 6th generation fighter instead. But first, I want to tell you about this video's sponsor, War Thunder.
I'm just going to skip the sponsor real quick, okay?
And much more, just for a limited time only though. The F-22 Raptor was a quantum leap in combat capabilities, so how did the upgrades prepare the F-22 to operate well into the 2040s? And furthermore, how do they bolster the US position against present-day threats? The addition of new aviation systems are a major highlight, because according to the experts at theaviationist.com, in some cases, even modern 4th generation fighters like the F-15EX have avionics that are ahead of what's found in the Raptor.
That's really interesting. I think that just goes to show how good some of the older aircraft are at adapting. But we know that there's this new technology where they're all trying all these different vehicles. They want instantaneous communication between all of them. And so if the F-22 couldn't upgrade to that, that's where it's going to start falling behind. But it looks like that they're upgrading that, which is super interesting. Also, every time I see a picture of the F-22, it is the best looking plane ever made. It is so cool. It's unreal, isn't it?
F-22 was missing advanced technologies like your cutting-edge data links, helmet-mounted sights. The technological gap limits the F-22's teamwork, including communications with other US aircraft like the F-35.
Yeah.
The F-22 struggled with sending and receiving greater amounts of data. So now we have a situation where the F-22's effectiveness in the Pacific theater is being challenged due to its known gas-thirsty engines, which reduce its range, which is lower than the F-15. According to theaviationist.com, the revamp will include 3 major changes, including stealthy external fuel tanks, the top-secret AIM-260 air-to-air missile, and 2 new, really mysterious pods. All the way back in 1998, the then U.S. Air Force Deputy Chief of
He didn't have to put that picture in, did he?
Staff for Air and Space Operations, Major General Bruce Carlson, said, quote, "We're not building the F-22 for the threats we face in 2000 or 2005. We're building it for the threats we will face in 2020. I know it's hard to believe it, but 2020 has already come and gone, and the truth is both Russia and China are now attempting to catch up with American air power. This means that after 20 years of undisputed rule of the skies, the F-22 has new challengers."
The thing is, does it though? Does it really? Does it really have new challengers? Because I just don't know if it does. If they didn't upgrade the F-22, yes, it uses a lot of gas and its comms isn't the best. I still don't see Russia and China beating it. I really don't. I understand that it's not a case of being like, well, we don't think they can beat it, so let's put our resources elsewhere. Obviously, the US military is going to be like, we don't even want them to come close to us. We want to be so far advanced, so far ahead of them that it's not even comprehensible. And that's the mindset of a country that is the best in the world, right? Or at least their military is the best in the world. And so this aircraft, which is already just an absolute beast, isn't it? They've turned around and said, what's all its flaws? Okay, comms, gas. Let's upgrade all that, and it's just going to be that one step ahead of everyone else again. Whatever Russia and China bring out in the next 10 years, it's not beating this. I would say whatever they bring out in the next 20 years is probably not going to beat this, even before its upgrades. But the US is just like, we don't even want them to scrape close to us.
A recent high-level strategic operational war game of a hypothetical China invasion of Taiwan showed there would likely be no quick victory for either side. Most notably, neither side achieved air superiority, and both sides took heavy losses.
Wow.
The job of establishing air superiority over the 60 million square miles, or about 30% of the Earth's surface in the Pacific, is difficult. To that point, the logistics of getting equipment and personnel to the fight is overwhelmingly the most important factor. And in that sense, China's proximity to Taiwan is a great advantage for them. And here lies one of the F-22's potential weaknesses that need to be addressed. Analysts have said that the extra gas is, quote, the most critical for an air war with China, making long flights over the open water a little more feasible for the otherwise short-range Raptors. Currently,
so would they even use, I mean, I guess if they're going to upgrade it, they're going to use it, but why wouldn't they just use something else? Why wouldn't they just use an F-35? You know, why wouldn't they just use something that's maybe that got that little bit of an edge over it rather than upgrade it? But hey, whatever, it's a beast of an aircraft, so if they can use it, why not?
the F-22's range is too short. Thus, in terms of strategy, besides adding new basing access in the Indo-Pacific region, it's a priority to increase the F-22's range.
Yeah.
The Raptor's evolution to the Super Raptor. The first glimpse of the revamped Super Raptor aircraft was first captured near the Mojave Air and Space Port at the end of March 2024. And
can we just talk about how good the naming system is? All right, we've got the F-22 Raptor. We're going to upgrade it. What should we call it? Let's call it the Super F-22 Raptor. It's so simple. I think it's that young Dragon Ball Z fan inside of me that's just like, oh, it just adds that little bit, doesn't it?
it shows two main changes. First, it looks like the 600-gallon fuel tanks of the F-22 have been replaced by two new fuel tanks, officially known as the low-drag tank and pylon. These tanks are designed to be more aerodynamically efficient and stealthier than the current 600-gallon fuel tanks. How? Well, they reduce drag thanks to the pylons, which feature advanced smart rack pneumonic technology, enabling precise control over ejection performance and ensuring a sleek low-drag profile. I love having precise ejection control, that's my favorite. When it comes to stealth, the F-22 is said to be almost...
It's almost as if they were making this. When they put that in there, they were making this video and they're like, we've got to mention something about that right there, aren't we? And then they just added that in the post part.
invisible. If you're an enemy and you're looking at it on your radar screen, it appears to be closer to a marble-sized object. So be on the lookout for a flying fast marble. Its infrared and acoustic signatures don't reveal its position thanks to its internal weapons bay that hide its payload from the enemy view until it's too late for them. Combine this with its advanced weapon systems that enable engagement of targets beyond visual range, and you've got a haunting fighter that is so stealthy it could sneak up on its own shadow. The stealthy new fuel tanks would increase persistence and range by up to 37% according to some open source numbers. That would mean a new combat radius of 825 nautical miles, fundamental to the Pacific Theater. The program...
Okay, so my biggest question is why this then? Why upgrade the F-22 when there are other aircraft, that are capable of doing these things, right? And there's a couple things that come to mind. Firstly, the F-22 is just an absolute beast, so why not use it while you've got it? Secondly, it seems to be a quick fix over waiting for Gen 6 aircraft, which you could extrapolate that idea into other things of, is it going to kick off soon? Because the world is kind of sketchy right now. Or is it that the 6th generation fighter needs a bit more time and so they need to fill that gap and they're going to use the F-22 upgrades for that? And then thirdly, well, I had something else in my mind about why they would use this aircraft over something else. Does it mean that a price tag of upgrading this aircraft, which was billions that it is, would be cheaper to have a more effective aircraft than the ones we've currently got? Does that make sense? And so having that little bit of an upgrade has a massive impact on performance compared to other aircraft. Does that make sense? I might not be articulating that correctly.
Calls for enough to fully equip 143 jets at 2 for each jet. The second change we can see in the picture is that the F-22 now shows 2 pods. These have also been spotted during a flight testing in February 2022 at the Air Force's Plant 42 facility in California. They'll likely house an infrared search and track sensor that's being developed for the F-22, probably similar to the F-35's electro-optical targeting systems. The IRST involves placing a front-facing infrared camera sensor, allowing to detect enemy aircraft and missiles via the infrared signature. This pod would eliminate the need for heavy and expensive modifications to the airframe. Take a look at that F-22 for a second. Notice how it has no IRST or infrared search and track system. It's often used to track enemy targets. There are 3 possible reasons for this lack of IRST, I think. One is that the F-22 is mainly an air-to-air fighter, and radar is best for picking up enemy in the air, while that IRST is good for tracking ground targets. Number 2 is it was difficult to create a stealthy version of the IRST pod in the past. And 3, it already has a very powerful radar that can detect enemies many times further away. So why might the IRST be the hottest fashion in the summer of 2024? It's making a comeback because next generation sensors have made the capability more effective than it was in the past, back when the F-22 was first designed. So the new infrared pod will have greater range and new stealth technology, and the new stealth technology makes its adoption viable finally.
So it's almost as if this upgrade it's just because it's hit the sweet spot of the technology's there. The price isn't, I mean, it is massive when you think of how much it is, but for the US military, it's not that much of a massive push to upgrade what already is incredible aircraft, right? And so it seems like it's come at that sweet spot where it's just the right amount of upgrades that technology allows for the price tag. And probably the idea that China and Taiwan can China will kick off with Taiwan at any moment, can't they, really? And I think that, I hate how my hair pops up like that out my hat. It looks ridiculous, doesn't it? I think that what's happening is the US is super worried, right, that it's kicking off with Russia's kicking off for Ukraine still. Israel's kicking off in Gaza still. And there's all these resources going to these other wars. I think the US is worried that China's going to be like, oh, everyone's distracted right now. Let's kick off with Taiwan a little bit. And my head just completely went then. Let's kick off with Taiwan a little bit, and no one will notice. The US will definitely notice, but I think it will just take resources away from Ukraine and Israel. Or they won't put as much resources into Taiwan and China as they think they would. Do you know what I mean? My head completely went then. I don't know why. How often does that happen? I was just like, that's like a mini stroke.
Budget documents also indicate that production of the IRST is to begin in early 2028, with deliveries the following year. The IRST is part of a sensor enhancement package for the F-22, which will likely include radar and other detection systems to preserve the first look, first shot, and kill capabilities. It's also possible one of these pods on the wing is an electronic warfare pod that the Super Raptor will receive. This would give it additional abilities to jam, deny, and deceive incoming missiles. 142 F-22 Raptors will get retrofits here.
142, and what was the price tag at the start? Did you mention what the price tag was? I don't remember what it was. I wonder if someone can go back, get the 142 and find out how much of a cost it is per F-22. I'd be super interested. In fact, where are we at? We're at 836 right now.
Sending and receiving greater amounts of data. So now we have a situation overhaul over the next massive. Recently, finally getting a glimpse of what changes the new and improved material resources.
No, we're not going to find out.
The old Raptor, when that money could be going towards the new 6th generation
fighters. It must have been around here.
Best human and material resources upgrade. We'll also.
No, we're not going to find out. I want to know how much it cost per F-22. I think, did it say something like 11 billion? Someone will do the calculations.
To preserve the first look, first shot, and kill capabilities. It's also possible one of these pods on the wing is an electronic warfare pod that the Super Raptor will receive.
We're a little bit behind it, but whatever.
Additional abilities to jam, deny, and deceive incoming missiles. 142 F-22 Raptors will get retrofits here, and this will be a part of that $11 billion decade-long modernization.
11 billion. Let's do some quick calculations here. Let me get my calculator up. Although I don't even know if I can. 11 billion. It won't even let me do that on my thing. I gotta find this. 11 billion by 142. Okay, that is 77,464,788 So about if you're gonna round up, 78 million per aircraft. $78 million per aircraft. Oh my God.
Contract. The Air Force has said that these kits are varied and will address corrosion, reduce maintenance hours, increase safety, and provide urgent response requirements identified by the user. Fear not, the Air Force has a plan for how to decrease the number of Raptors operational while maintaining combat power. Feast your eyes on the highly classified AIM-260 Joint Advanced Tactical Missile. The weapon you choose when you hate someone so much you want to shoot them before you can see them. Because this is rumored to hit targets beyond visual range.
What?
The weapons program was started in 2017, specifically in response to China's PL-15 long-range missile. China and the United States are basically locked in the highest stakes version of the anything you can do, I can do better game. Even though it's super top secret squirrel stuff here, we have some hints about its capabilities. Aviation expert Steve Trimble said that he saw charts of the Air Force range requirements that showed the test area for the new AIM-260 that were about twice the range of its predecessor. So
I don't know if that makes sense though, because, okay, let's just bear it down to the Bobby Basic concept of it's a missile that you can shoot at someone you can't see just yet because it's out of the visual range. Cool, all right? What happens if you're up against a target that is you know, like the F-22, like it's like a marble on your radar, like it's nothing. I feel like, what about like the whole? I don't know if this applies to the Air Force as well, but in the Marines, when I was in the Royal Marines, we had something called like an A1 card, and it was basically like what you are and what you're allowed and what you're not allowed to do during combat, right? You're not allowed to, you can only shoot at someone when they shoot at you, right? Like that type of thing. So at what point are we like, we can't see them, we can't ID them? There's a bit of worry there. Is it that something else, like a drone, can see it first from a distance and then you get to take the shot? I feel like it's a bit weird not being able to physically see something before you shoot it. I think that's probably the Marine in me, but someone else can probably make an argument as to why a pilot's able to do that more than anything. Obviously, when you're on the ground, it's a lot different, isn't it? And I don't know what the rules are for pilots, so that's super interesting to me.
Rumor has it, this will give the F-22 a max firing range of between 200 and 400 kilometers, possibly further, likely around 180 miles distance, possibly more. Don't shoot me with one if I get that wrong though. The reason people are having to guesstimate widely here about the range is because the newest variant of the AIM-120 predecessor has a range estimated to be about 180, 160 kilometers. So if you double that, it gives us a rough idea of what the AIM-260 will do for the F-22. But you know me, I like to use my hometown of Long Island as a unit of measurement, a point that we can all wrap our heads around for context. That means that if you're firing this missile in Queens, you can hit me if I'm all the way on the other end of the island in Montauk. In fact, you could hit me if I was 2 Long Islands away. Here's the best part though, it allegedly moves at Mach 5 speeds. So if you're traveling
It moves at Mach 5?
the length of Long Island, it's only going to take you about 2 minutes. It's able to do this thanks to revolutionary new propulsion technology, but here's the catch. Those numbers are going to vary widely depending on the altitude and the speed of the aircraft firing it.
True.
The higher up and the faster you're moving, the longer range it'll be. The air gets more thin the higher up you go, which means it's more difficult for a missile to course correct though. It means that it's more difficult to correct your lead. This is why you want the enemy to not even know you're firing at them. Russia also has a long-range air-to-air missile, the RM-37, which has been the main opponent of Ukrainian fighter jets. It's reported to not score a lot of hard kills, but it was frequently forcing Ukrainian pilots to ditch their missions after taking evasive action because they had low fuel budgets. Simply having more range doesn't mean it's more better. I think that's the grammatically correct way of saying that.
True,
We also have to consider when the missile needs to burn its second phase. When it requires that, it means that it becomes easier to be spotted on enemy radar, which is when they can take evasive action. It's said to use inertial guidance, two-way data link, and active radar homing, so it should be more difficult to jam, which is another new requirement as the military shifts to near peer. Essentially, the air-to-air missile combines a multi-mode seeker with a long-burn rocket system. Ever since sword combat, we've just been growing further and further apart. War is getting lonelier and lonelier. From what I understand, the missile is not operational quite yet.
There is some truth to that, isn't it? The further in technology we get, the less personal it becomes, which is weird, isn't it? Like in 100 years, 200 years, if there's ever another world war, which God forbid there is, it'll just be people sat in offices pointing them, like using their mouse to click on things. Do you know what I mean? Like there won't be any personal, and they won't be. What worries me about that, and war is horrible in general, but when you're fighting someone face to face and you're looking at them, there is a bit of humanity that gets there. Some people will say that that'll get in the way of a war, but I think that's what's important in a war, is to realize that you are against other humans, right? How many stories have we heard about people fighting in World War II hand to hand, and then they see each other and they have to stop and they're just like, what's going on? Or even the story of, I don't know if you know the incredible story during the war that it was Christmas Day and they halted all of the fighting in the trenches, and the Germans and the English had a game of football in no man's land and then went back the next day and started fighting. Like, there's an element of humanity in there, and this is a completely different conversation we're having here, but I think it's an important one, that as time advances, the empathy will disappear because it'll become more about numbers than it will about humans, and that's scary. That is.
Still in its testing phase, and the Air Force Major Kevin Autery, who's the lead F-22 Raptor operational test pilot, said live fire testing for the AIM-260 started back in the summer of 2023, so they expect it to go hot sometime in 2024. The Air Force has come out and publicly stated this technology, the AIM-260, is their #1 air-delivered weapon priority for both the Air Force and the Navy, and out-prioritizes all weapon systems and modernization efforts on fielded aircraft. The new missile will be a major part of the Super Raptor's new capabilities. And if you want to debate all of that with me and a community of like-minded people, you can do it at our Discord channel, link in the description. Now put that in combination with the fact that it's also fast flying at more than twice the speed of sound, has super cruise ability, which means that it can operate supersonically without loud afterburning, and can do all of this at 50,000 feet altitude. In the air-to-air
It's just a beast, isn't it? It's an absolute beast, this aircraft.
configuration, it carries 6 AIM-120 AMRAAMs stowed on separate ejector launchers in the central bay below and behind the pilot, and 2 AIM-9 Sidewinders for engagements within visual range, 1 in each bay aft of the inlets. It also has the M61A2 rotary cannon with 480 rounds of ammo. In the air-to-ground configuration, it can carry 2 1,000-pound GBU 32 Joint Direct Attack munitions.
Oh my God.
Basically, the upgrade is meant to increase time in air and make it delay while it's there. To retire or not to retire? That is the question. Because the very reasons for the Raptor's upgrade have also been cited for its retirement, arguing that it's not worth spending more money and time to keep the Raptor alive. Less than a year ago, the Air Force was asking to retire up to 32 of the oldest Raptors. However, in a sudden turn of events a month ago, Air Force Acquisition Chief Andrew Hunter called the F-22 his highest priority. What changed? There are different theories, but in general, this debate is nothing new. In fact, the same thing happened when the F-22 replaced the F-15. I think this is a debate between those who want to focus on the future and those who are worried about the present. The ones who are focusing on the future want to retire the F-22 and free up funding for more advanced future tech, while the ones who are worried about the present believe that the immediate need for more combat power should be prioritized.
I think there's a really good argument there. I think currently, again, because of the way that the world is right now, how volatile it is, right? We've got, again, Russia still kicking off with Ukraine. We've got Israel still kicking off with Gaza. Like, we've still got two big things going on, right? It almost seems it's leaning more to the think about now than it is about the future, isn't it? But the US is the US military, I should say, is this complicated balance of upgrading while also thinking about the future. And I think this is just a quick fix for them. I really do. I think it's a quick, easy fix with good enough gains to make it viable. That probably doesn't impact the advancement of Gen 6. That's what I think it is.
And it remained in production for 15 years, reaching a peak rate of approximately 2 units per month. The program originally intended to have 750 units, but subsequent cuts, delays, and changes gradually reduced this number. The focus on the war on terror and against insurgencies during the 2000s, 2010s meant that the Raptor was sidelined since it wasn't going up against any next-generation jets piloted by the Taliban. Today, the US Air Force has about 186 of these fighters. The final one was completed in December 2011. However, 10 years later, and the Raptor's facing a very different world and very different threats, I think. This was essentially the debate that happened when the Raptor was first canceled in 2009. Leadership thought that the aircraft wasn't relevant for the current fight at the time, but let's evaluate their arguments. The side that asked for the F-22 retirement is concerned that at least some of the oldest Raptors cannot compete, for example, with China's J-22. Lieutenant General Richard Moore, Deputy Chief of Staff for Plans and Programs for the Air Force, stated, quote, "The Raptors will never make it to the combat force. They lack advanced communication systems. They do not carry the most sophisticated weapons. They are devoid of the most updated electronic warfare capabilities."
Oh, he's a hater, isn't he? He's a big hater.
On April 2023, Lieutenant General Moore also said that bringing the 32 jets up to combat capability could cost around $3.5 billion, and it would take a decade to get started, which in his own words is, quote, a trade to us that doesn't make any sense at all to upgrade aircraft a decade from now at great expense. This side of the debate wants to stop spending on the F-22 so that the money can go to the next generation air dominance program, which is not just an aircraft but a system of systems that seeks to develop a 6th generation manned fighter and planned fleet of drone wingmen.
I mean, that's such a cool idea. It's just how far away is that? Do you know what I mean? Like, we could be talking 10, 15 years before we get a sight of this thing. I don't think it would be that long, but we could. And what happens if China invades Taiwan? Do you know what I mean? Like, we can't wait 10 years. We've got to have something now. That's the truth of it. And if there's any time that China's going to take that action, it's going to be soon. Because we know that China's economy is plateauing a little bit, which means they might not make that much advancement right now. And so they're at a peak right now, which is really powerful for them. There's 2 other wars going off, which I've already mentioned, and the US is already putting a lot of money in the other 2. If there's no time like the present for China, I'm telling you that right now. And so this is a cool idea, and I want this. I think this is awesome. But we've got to start thinking about what's going to happen in the next couple of years, haven't we?
However, the greatest expense is not money, but qualified people. This side of the discussion fears that Lockheed doesn't have the human resources to deal with saving the F-22. Lieutenant General Moore warned that, quote, Lockheed is not fully staffed for engineers. It would be reasonable to expect they would have to pull some engineering talent off the F-35 to get this accomplished. And what does that represent? Something more valuable than money: time. Those who oppose the upgrade see the world's rate of advancement is getting higher and higher, and they're worried about the threats that they'll face in 2035 or 2060. By the time the F-22 modernization is finished, the aircraft could be nearing the end of its lifespan. Many fear that the then 4 decades old Raptor is just not going to be the right tool for the job. That's what Tobias Nigel meant when he wrote in the editorial of 2022 Air Force Almanac, quote, an arbitrary and inadequate department of the Air Force budget, disconnected from the National Defense Strategy, makes too many compromises. This year, the Air Force offered to retire its oldest F-22 Raptors, the most capable fighters in the world, early rather than upgrade them. Not because they're not needed, but because there are too many other pressing demands to fund these upgrades. And
he's definitely right. I mean, these are not wrong quotes. No one's wrong here. I just think that we need something sooner. We just need something sooner. If the 6th gen fighter is already done and we just don't know about it, it's already completed, which is highly unlikely. We would know that it's been done and completed, and we would have pictures of it. If it was already done, then cool, don't even worry about this. But it could be ages until that's done.
quote, nevertheless, the side who wants to keep the F-22 for as long as possible sees that the real pressing demand are current and not future threats.
Yeah.
This side includes the US Congress. Congress oftentimes leans towards prioritizing the most immediate pressing threats.
Congress is very reactionary, though, isn't it? Which makes sense, whereas the military-industrial complex of the US is not very reactionary, unless they are involved in a full war, like legitimately involved in a war. Then they're not going to be reactionary. They're going to be thinking more about what can we do to keep it ahead of everyone else. So yeah, it makes sense that they're on that side of the argument.
From this point of view, waiting for only 250 to 300 NGAD untested fighters could be a risky scenario. But this side argues that in the meantime, you need the Raptor to protect both the US and its allies. However, one of the most meaningful threats to the F-22 superiority may in fact be itself. The main challenge with the F-22 is not necessarily its acquisition cost, which isn't cheap to be fair, but rather its high operational expenses, maintenance requirements, low availability rates, and significant difficulties incorporating upgrades. The high operational expenses imply costly flight hours, simply because it requires an expensive support infrastructure. In numbers, this makes the F-22A cost at least an additional 20,000 C/FH or cost per flying hour compared to other aircraft. I mean, just look at that price sheet for yourself. Some estimates even raise the value to 85,000 cost per flight hour for the Raptor, which is about twice that of the F-15. With those prices, the F-22 better be fueled by some fine scotch and maintained by a team of royal mechanics. The maintenance requirements are that expensive partly because it requires climate control systems, very specialized equipment, and access to very specific materials and technological tools, especially to maintain its stealth coating. So she's pretty high maintenance. According to Lockheed Martin, about 50% of maintenance performed on the F-22 is related to repairing the low observable stealth coating that are damaged when the aircraft is opened up for routine maintenance. Also,
Mm.
there are security clearance problems inherent in any secret program. The crew has to be cleared to work on the F-22 from air bases that are also cleared to host and service it.
Wow, so there's a lot of boxes that need to be checked, isn't there, just to get this thing looked after? That's pretty nuts.
Security clearances can be tough because the US government will look into not just your browser history, but also they'll be checking on your significant others, lovers, friends, people near you, the guy you once met in 5th grade who now writes a conspiracy blog. I wouldn't be surprised if the program even had a secret Raptor handshake. But there's good reason for it. This is because the F-22 is a strategic asset. The low amount of existing aircraft also makes spare parts more difficult to source. Now it seems like the debate has reached a middle ground. The Air Force will maintain combat-capable F-22s while balancing resources between older models, NGAD, and the F-35 program. Air Force Chief of Staff General David Alvin has said, quote, "Our goal is to maintain those F-22 in their prime operational state, keep them in active service, and subsequently invest some resources in units that require significant upkeep." But what do you think of the Super Raptor? I want to know. Tell me on Twitter, @CappyArmy. I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy, signing off this net time now.
Do you know what? I really, really love Task and Purpose's YouTube channel. I just wish he would give a bit more of his own opinion on it. I think when someone does this much, this many news videos, this amount of news videos, I think he would have a really good opinion on this type of stuff. And I'd love if you just added like a 2-minute segment at the end, just being like, here's my thoughts. I think that'd be really cool. If you're watching this, Task and Purpose, give that a go, because I'd love to know your opinion as well. But I think it's the reason they're doing this upgrade is a worry about the now. That's all it is. I think it's a quick fix. It's not a cheap fix, but it's a quick fix where they can upgrade these Raptors and have something as effective as they are, because they're so effective, ready now in case China and Taiwan kick off. I think that's what it is. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts. I think this is a very interesting development in the aerospace, because it doesn't just have implications for the F-22. It kind of makes you worry about 6th gen, doesn't it? If they're upgrading these, where's 6th gen? And is it a bit further behind than we actually think, right? That's my thought process. And it kind of is a bit more than just the upgrade of the F-22, isn't it? Link down below to the original video. Go down there and give Task and Purpose some love. They certainly deserve it. Check out Morale, my new project, down below. And other than that, I will see you in tomorrow's video. I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.